How's it going, everybody? It's your boy, and just a quick video on immigration and what I think about it, and how can we solve it, what do we do with it, and things like that. It's never been done before, right? There's a lot of things that are said and things that are done about immigration, and well, considering I'm a third generation, is it? I don't know, I don't care. I think I could possibly weigh in on this. So let's start with the things that I don't like on the left, because I talk about that the most, because I'm trying to fix it. So what I've noticed, and this is more towards the mainstream side of things, more towards the SJW side of things, is they like to conflate a lot illegals with legals. Why? Why are you conflating them? Now, there's a few reasons for this. There's one, the leftist corporate side of things. They want a new voting bloc, which is why they group the illegals with the legals, because if they can get a load of illegals in, grant them amnesty, they've got themselves a brand new voting bloc which will potentially keep them in power and perhaps even replace all the white male, maybe white female voters that they're going to lose, and potentially even some of the other minorities that have been living there since, well, the foundation of their country, or have been there for a very long time, centuries or decades even. With America, you'll have African Americans, and of course you will have the Hispanics that didn't leave when Texas, Arizona, California, all those other states were conquered. You know, those groups of people, or the Asians, you know, those people are probably going to move away from that if they're going to be left to their own devices by a political party. You know, that could happen. And there are some people on the left who genuinely are actually convinced that most of the right, the centre right that is, the ones that they're actually fighting to win elections with, want to kick out all the immigrants, every single one of them, the legals and the illegals. Now, why the hell would you kick out a legal immigrant if they don't break the law, if they pay their taxes, and if they are indeed citizens, contribute to democracy and vote every time, especially if they vote for your party? Because people forget this. Immigrants can vote for any side. They all have their own opinions and they all have their own ways of viewing the world. So they conflate them because they want to protect them. It's altruism. Some may call it pathological altruism. And these are things that I don't like. Because one, it would be rather bad for a whole party to kick out a whole demographic of people that they could potentially tap into if they could just convince them that their side of the argument is better than the other side of the argument. Now, you know, it's going to be difficult because people are tribal and it takes a long time for people to get out of these tribalistic feelings. But again, if you work at it long enough and hard enough, you might end up having 50% of Hispanics, 50% of blacks voting Republican or Conservative even. So it makes no sense from a political point of view or even a legal point of view. Likewise, this constant conflation is just going to anger those legals, because legal immigrants don't like illegal immigrants, because legal immigrants, especially if they're joining a country that has a very stringent policy, they have a very tough guideline and a very tough entry requirement to get into that country, and they've done all this hard work only to find out that one person or loads of other millions of people are just skipping the queue and getting into this country and then getting amnesty. They're not going to be happy with that. They don't want to be, you know, conflated with these people. They don't want to be grouped in with these people because they're completely different. They're legal immigrants. They didn't break the law. They didn't do anything like that. They went through the long, hard process of getting everything done, possibly costing them hundreds of, maybe even thousands of dollars or pounds to get to where they are, and then to uproot their family from another culture, another country, to another place that they feel is either more safe or better suited to whatever they think, feel or want, and then find that this person can sit there on welfare or commit crime or on minimum, well, not even minimum wage, and jump the queue and become a citizen once they maybe have a kid or they're granted amnesty by some Republican presidents or Democratic presidents. So those are some of the main issues that I have on the left. Another would be open borders. Now, this is actually for both sides, because both corporate wings are actually in favour of it. Both mainstream wings, to some extent, favour open borders. Now, for the left, it's, again, demographics. They want slight demographic changes in order to basically get a new voting bloc. Although if they own businesses, which some of them will do, they get cheap labour. And we know that a lot of these tech companies, if they're not employing engineers that have gone through the university system, they're going to be employing cheap labour like janitors or people who sit on the factory lines, as many as you have these days because it's mostly mechanised. You know, they're going to need these people to do the blue collar jobs that they need. And it's better to employ a cheap immigrant than it is a more expensive citizen. Like, it's a no-brainer, and it's the same on the right. They need their cheap labour. That's the only reason why somebody on the right would be in favour of open borders. Cheap labour, they get to save loads of money, and they don't have to pay a citizen the full amount because it's just too much effort. Also, in a strange way, wouldn't that mean that they could also be able to pander to those legals who are getting essentially disenfranchised by the left wing, conflating them with the illegals, say, hey look, we know that what you did was legal. We know that you are a hard-working person. Come vote for us, because we're the party for you. Really makes you think. My light's gone out. Now, with the right, there's the overlap with the open borders, and I'll expand on that as well. It depresses wages. The more people we bring in, and the more they're working, the more wages is depressed. And especially when they're going to be working for cheaper wages. Another thing, and this goes more to the extremes, they want to get rid of all immigrants, or even people who are related to immigrants. And this is more the alt-right thing. Well, I disagree with that. If they've come in legally, and if they have adopted the culture, if they have assimilated, and their kids are assimilated, and they're practically no different to me or you, wherever you may live, those people have a right to stay there. They have a right to live and pay taxes and have all the benefits of citizenry, right? That's what they should have. I don't believe that these people should then be forcibly removed, because how are we going to remove them? What methods are we going to use? Is it going to be force? Is it going to be monetary? Some of those people live there for so long that it's basically their home, or it's all they've ever known, like me. Why would I leave? Where am I going to go? Not only that, if we remove these people, that's only going to create more problems for other countries, because then they've got to book the bill and deal with this wave of immigrants into their country. Some of them are very small countries, especially if you're from the Caribbean or you have ancestry there. If you were to move there, your island can only hold so many people. Your island can only essentially afford a certain amount of people. Some of them are poor enough as it is and can barely afford the people that live there, and they have small populations. With the illegals, I don't care, because they're criminals. They should be deported. Or if you're a legal immigrant but you commit a crime, yeah, you should be deported too, depending on the crime, that is, but I've not decided on that yet. Now, there's one thing I forgot before I'll get into another thing that I think will solve the issue of immigration altogether. The left don't seem to, at least on the mainstream, don't seem to care if an immigrant adopts to the society or not. That should be the number one priority. We should be able to pick and choose who we want in our countries or not, rather than make it open and make sure that they do follow the laws, that they do, when they move here, agree to assimilate to the culture. In their opinion, that, you know, the multicultural thing is, oh, you know, you just go in that area of the city and we'll stay here and we'll be segregated and you have your own little ghetto, but you'll be a voting bloc for us. And that's enriching. Well, no, it's not, is it? Because neither side are actually interacting with each other properly. A melting pot is when everybody essentially is exchanging ideas, they're, you know, talking to each other, communicating with each other, they're assimilating with each other. You know, we get rid of the bad things that we don't need and we bring in the good things that we need. Like a prime example of that is, well, the United States. The United States was a country of immigrants. It's now pretty much its own culture, and that comes about from all these different cultures coming together and essentially through hundreds of years of development have gotten rid of all the bad things in their cultures for the most part and kept the good things, and this has developed American culture. That is the melting pot. That is what we should mean by multiculturalism. But that's not what it is in practice, and that's not what it is with the social justice thing. Like, that's not what they mean. Now, how do we solve immigration? Do we have too little? Do we have too much? Well, you can't have too little and you can't have too much, because in some cases, especially in the West, some industries and some things that we have set up, like the NHS, for example, they're very reliant on immigrant nurses or doctors coming over to work. However, conversely, these other countries that we're taking these people from are suffering because we're essentially taking their greatest and brightest and stunting their development. Now, of course, they are developing, but they're developing slower. They would develop a lot quicker if they had these people. But another problem is, we can't necessarily take their worst or their poorest. Not that necessarily that these poor people can't come to this country and become successful. A lot have done over the years. America's a prime example of that. But on average, you get what happens right now in Europe when you take those people in, especially the so-called refugees. You're just going to get these societal problems and a wave of crime and people sitting on benefits, not doing anything and not assimilating and causing trouble for everybody else. Here's my thing. We can have immigration. I don't mind that. But only the bare minimum. Now, I don't know what the number is. I'm not in any way a mathematician or a statistician. But there has to be a bare minimum that a country needs in order to fulfill some kind of thing that we need, because it's pretty clear that some countries need it to run certain industries. Now, I would rather make sure that these industries don't necessarily need these immigrants, that they should be able to get all they need from the native population or the minorities are already there. Like, surely my country of 60 million, the NHS should have plenty of people that they can develop and employ to run it, essentially, rather than rely too much on immigrants. Personally, I think we should start bringing in the best and the brightest of these developing countries instead. Try and convince them to stay there and develop their countries, you know, to give equal opportunity to the poor, to remove these caste systems or whatever that's holding them back, so that they become developed countries, and then they don't have to feel the need to move for better opportunities. Instead, they can create better opportunities, and we don't have to be so reliant on cheap labour from elsewhere, and we can build up our own industries back to how they were maybe back in the day, or at least to a standard like that. Now, there's a video that explains it much better than I possibly can, and that'll be linked in the description down below. Essentially, it's if we keep the best and brightest over there, these countries will develop at a faster rate than they already are. But I don't know, I'm just rambling at this point, and I think I'm going to end it here. So it's been your boy, and until next time, I'll see you later.